All right, am I live?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right, hey guys. I'm doing a live video, which is always nervous thing for me because I'm sure I'll flubber or somebody may walk into our conference room or whatnot. But I wanted to bring to you guys today my top 10 tips on what you should know if you're planning on purchasing a house in the next 3 months. This is not the only thing you should ever know, so it's not an exclusive list because I know I'm going to get comments on, well, don't forget about this or don't forget about that. But it's more of a pragmatic list. I'm a pragmatic person, not a whimsical person. So I do believe, go ahead. Hopefully this is continuing.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
got it. I got a call. I do believe in giving you guys some really specific things that you should be doing if you're going to purchase in the next 3 months. So number one, make sure that your driver's license or ID is valid. We cannot close a loan if the ID of whoever's on the loan is expired. So that seems like a really simple thing, but you wouldn't believe how many people have driver's license or IDs that are expired. But we have to have some sort of identification that is valid. So make sure that that is valid. I actually have a quick story. Whenever I was in college, I worked at the Kroger right next to SMU, and so I was, for lack of a better word, trained to pick fake IDs for all of the college kids who were trying to buy beer with fake IDs and such. And so I knew how to do it. So fast forward to when I started working here, I was looking at someone's ID and I looked at it and it just didn't look right. There was something off about it. And so I found that the customer buying a house gave me a fake ID. And the whole reason that they did it is because they knew that they needed a valid ID, but they also had a bunch of speeding tickets that they'd never paid, and they knew they couldn't go get a valid ID without paying them. So they gave me a fake one. Needless to say, we had to end up killing the deal because of fraud. So just make sure your ID is valid. When you start the process, there are so many things that are going to come up that it's actually going to stress you out, unfortunately, because there's a lot of digging into your financials, and you just don't want having to go to the DPS and take off work when you're already taken off work for things like your inspection or whatnot. You just want to make sure that that's valid. So that's number one. Number two, make sure that you're not having any insufficient funds happening, NSFs on your bank account, or negative balance, any kind of negative balances on your bank account. So whenever you go through underwriting, they start looking at your bank statements, and they look at 2 months, typically 60 days worth. And if you've got negative balances in there, it does not look good at all to an underwriter when they're looking at your financials, because they're trying to determine if you're worthy of your 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, whatever it is that our bank's going to let you borrow. So you want to make sure that you haven't gone negative on your account, because then they're looking at you and wanting to verify that financially you can handle it, but you may have not made sure that you had enough money to cover your Starbucks or whatever it was. So just make sure that if you are prone to NSFs, A, fix that, but B, just make sure that you're not doing it for the 3 months before you buy a house, because they look at 60 days worth, and we know that bank statements typically run 30 days behind anyways. So for 3 months, make sure if that's what you're prone to that you don't have any NSFs on your bank accounts. All right, number three, do not randomly deposit cash into your account unless you can document and paper trail the heck out of it. So we get all kinds of randomly deposited cash into our account, into accounts that constantly happen, whether it's birthday money or we got married and we deposited all the wedding present money that we got or whatever it is. Our underwriters, flags go up everywhere as far as money laundering, or maybe taking cash out for a cash advance with a credit card, which is a big no-no. Lots of flags go up. So you just want to make sure that in the 3 months prior to buying a house, you're not putting in any kind of random deposits that we can't verify. So, grandma gave me $2,000 in cash and I put it into my account. That's not verifiable. You can write a letter all day long saying grandma gave me $2,000 cash and I put it into my account, but since you can't paper trail that, nobody believes it. Now, can you get a gift? Absolutely, but it has to be in a verifiable way of getting a gift. So if grandma's giving you a $2,000 gift, I would say grandma needs to write a check so I can show the money cleared from her account and it went into your account and it's not cash. So cash is really, it's not easy to prove at all. So that's my next one. Make sure you're staying clear of that for 3 months worth. All right, now my next one, don't change jobs from a salary or an hourly job to a self-employed job. So you would also not believe how many people all of a sudden they want to, right before they buy a house or even the year before they want to buy a house, they're like, you know what, I'm a really good roofer, so I'm going to quit my job and go start my own roofing company. That's not the time to do it. I understand wanting to broaden your horizons and not work for the man or whatever it is, but right before your house is not the time, because we have to prove your consistency in making money and know that you can pay your bills on time. And if you just started your own company, we can't prove any kind of consistency on how much money you make. Even if the first 3 months you made $90,000, that's great, but there's no consistency to it. So we don't know if the next 6 months you're going to slack off and not make any money, and we don't know. So that is not the time to do it. Make sure you're staying with your job. That if you're looking to buy a house in the next 3 months, you're going to have to provide pay stubs, W-2s. You just want to make sure that you're sticking with your job. All right, so let me go to my next one. I actually wrote these down. Number 5, don't add any new loans that could hurt your qualified amount. So what I mean by that is, if you're wanting to qualify for $300,000 and you already have a lot of debt in your name, don't go buy a new boat. Don't go buy a new Harley Davidson motorcycle. Don't go buy a new car. Don't go take a loan out on XYZ. Just make sure that you're keeping your debt as minimal as possible, especially if you already have a lot of debt and student loans and such. You want to make sure, you're checking into your numbers to make sure that you truly can afford a $3,000 house payment or a $2,000 house payment or whatever you're looking to do. We have to make sure you can afford it. And a lot of times, some customers will have income. Let's say they babysit every single weekend, but they never claimed it on their tax returns for the last several years. I can't count that income. So maybe in reality, you have that income to cover your debts, but us being able to actually prove it is a whole other story. So you just want to make sure your debt stays to the point that you can qualify for your mortgage with the income that we can qualify you with. So just know that. Don't go crazy. All right, my next one is don't max out your credit cards. So the reason I would say don't max out your credit cards, even if you can pay your payment, is because when you max them out, and actually when your balance is 30% or higher of your credit limit, it starts nicking your points, your credit points. So if your credit score is already on the verge of qualifying or on the verge of using a first-time homebuyer bond program, you don't want to go max out a credit card, because it can, depending on the algorithm of your score, it could drop you 20 points or it could drop you 15 points or whatever the case, and it could be the deciding factor on if you can use a bond program or even qualify. So make sure for the 3 months before you buy a house, at any point in time, you don't let that credit card max out. And so what I mean by any point in time is, some people think, oh, I can go max it out tomorrow, go buy a TV, and then I'll pay it off as soon as I get my paycheck in 3 days. Well, the problem with that is that the credit companies record that highest balance and they report it. And so that actually looks as if, even though you paid it off within 3 days, it looks like you maxed out your credit card. So it doesn't help very much. So just know that, so that you're not getting your credit score nicked during the 3 months. You don't want to have to do any kind of emergency changes to your credit score at all. All right, number 7, now is the time to start saving money as much as you can. Whether you're going to qualify for a bond program or use a program like the veterans loan where you don't have a down payment, you're still going to have expenses. And you're going to have expenses such as paying for the deposit when you put a contract on the house. And that could be upwards of $1,000, it could be $2,000, it's whatever you negotiate. So you want to have money for that. You're going to need money for your inspection. You're going to need money for an appraisal. You're going to need, if you use a bond program, and that bond program doesn't pay for every bit of the transaction, down payment plus closing costs, you're gonna need a little bit of money. So you want to start saving money and not waiting till you have 1 month left till you need to buy a house, or 1 month left till you got to be out of your apartment. You want to start doing those things earlier, and actually earlier than 3 months for sure. But if it means you've got to go a month without Starbucks or 2 months without Starbucks or Taco Bell or whatever, do it and figure it out early. That way you've got plenty of funds to cover the cost for the deposit or whatever it is. All right, so, all right, we're on to number 8. Don't assume that you'll be able to buy your loan with zero down or with some sort of government plan that you've heard about. I get this call probably once a month where somebody's heard about 4 years ago an Obama plan that was released. We don't do that. I don't really know who does, but a lot of the programs that were released were more just programs can be released in the government and can be passed by the government, but a bank actually willing to do them is another story. And so because the bank actually lends the money, the government may approve it, but somebody lending it is a whole other story. So just don't believe everything you see on the news, or don't believe that you can get into your house for absolutely nothing out of pocket, because there's things that come up. So I would not automatically assume that just because you're a veteran, you're not going to have to pay a dime. That's not true. Veterans have really great benefits, but there's still some dimes you'll have to pay. First-time home buyers, you can get into your house without paying a dime. Or you're going to buy a house in Forney, you can get this USDA loan without paying a dime. Incorrect completely. Not having a down payment, okay, that is reality, but all the other costs that come into effect, you want to make sure and be prepared for. So just make sure you're talking to somebody and not assuming that you're going to automatically get in without any money down. Okay, number 9. If you're married and you have no idea where your spouse is, now is the time to find them. I do get this call probably 2 or 3 times a month where we have to ask the question, are you married? And do you pay child support or alimony? And I constantly get the answer of, I haven't seen them in 7 years, or yes, but they are now, they live in Germany, or whatever it is. They don't know where their spouse is. We haven't talked. It ended badly, but I'm still married. Texas has really strong community property laws. And so the spouse has to actually, whenever someone is buying a primary residence, if they're married, the spouse actually has to sign a document at closing. If it's a government loan, we have to count their debts, and so we have to pull that spouse's credit. So if you're married and you do not want to use your spouse at all, make sure and figure that out before you start applying for the mortgage. So making sure you have a divorce, making sure you get with a judge to see what needs to be done, or your attorney, or finding them so that we can go ahead and verify their debts. Whatever it is, just don't assume that because you don't know where someone is, if you legally married that person, then we have a conversation that we're going to have if you're not really living with them. And to that point, if you have put your names together in legal documents and presented yourself as married, so on a tax return, presented to the IRS that you're married to someone that you're really not, just so that you could get a better refund back, then if you're going to buy a house, then we have legal documents in the file that you've stated you're married. So it's something to know. Just make sure you have that in order. And so with all of these items, it's just making sure stuff is in order so that we're not giving you one more burden to worry about when you're excited about your house and worried about other things. All right, number 10. Now is the time to start locating your documents. Your tax returns, your W-2s, judgment releases, if you had a judgment before, divorce decrees, etc., etc. We're going to request a lot of things. If you have random deposits of $3,000, $2,000, $1,000, we're going to request that verification. So you want to make sure that you've got everything prepared, because again, it is a stressful time when you buy a house, and we're very empathetic to that, and we try to walk you through as simply as possible, but we can't go find your tax returns for you. We can't go find your husband for you. We can't go find a judgment release for you. It's something that you definitely will have to make sure that you have. So before you have a contract, it's a perfect time to go ahead and get all of that handled and done. So with that said, if you are looking to buy in the next 3 months, one of the smartest things you can do, and even if it's in the next 6 months, is to go ahead and get pre-qualified with a loan officer. Whether it's myself or the loan officer you're planning on using, make sure and go ahead and get pre-qualified just as quickly as you can to make sure if your credit score is missing by 2 points or 3 points, you can handle that, or making sure you're going on ahead and gathering the items that are needed for the mortgage. Make sure and get pre-qualified. A lot of people who know that their credit is really great, they want to put that off until the very last moment. And so while it's great that their credit's great and they know that their income's great, there could be anything that could bite them in the butt. And so we just want to make sure that we are looking at the full picture up front, not sending you to go buy a house or sending you to write a contract without knowing everything. And a lot of people will tell the agent, oh, show me this house, let's go look at houses because I know my credit's great, I've got $50,000 in the bank, everything's great, go show me this house, I don't need to get pre-qualified first. And the agent reluctantly probably will, just because sometimes they do. And unfortunately, you at the end of the day, they may have wasted their gas or whatnot to go show houses, and there's actually something that is a problem on tax returns, or you tried to save money here in your tax returns and it's an issue. So just the smart thing to do, in my opinion, is to get pre-qualified as quickly as you know that you're going to be buying a house pretty soon. Last thing is, don't get irritated when the bank is digging and digging and digging in your financials. Just always remember that you're wanting to borrow money from a bank. The bank's not wanting to borrow money from you. So I know that sounds kind of maybe a little harsh, but I get a lot of people who are upset because we're digging in financials, but really the underwriter is trying to help get the money lent to you, but they do need to make sure that everything's stable, everything's okay. The rules are crazy. We always joke that we're going to have to get a pee sample, a blood sample, all those things. But it is what it is. So just be kind to your underwriter and your loan officer for sure as you're going through the process of buying. I hope that helps you. If you need me, feel free to reach out. My cell phone, I'm always okay with giving out my cell phone. It's 214-534-5600, or you can contact me on, Facebook Messenger or whatever, and I'm around. Thanks. Have a great day.